I gasped. The bathroom door slammed open, and a shadow lurked in the doorway. Soap dripped from my arms as I froze, my heart hammering against my ribs. Steam curled around the intruder, but through the haze, I saw her. Karen, the HOA president. Her beady eyes darted across the room, taking in every detail as if she owned the place. Because, in her twisted mind, she did. "What the hell are you doing?" I screamed, yanking a towel around myself. Karen didn't flinch. She just stood there, arms crossed, lips curled in disgust. "This bathroom violates HOA regulations." I was too stunned to speak. My bathroom? Violating HOA rules? I wanted to scream, to throw something, but I was still soaking wet and trapped. Then she did something that made my blood run cold. She pulled out her phone and started taking pictures. My pulse pounded in my ears. I felt exposed, humiliated, and completely powerless. But then, rage took over. This wasn't just about my bathroom. This was about control. And Karen was about to learn that she had messed with the wrong person. If you told me the HOA would go this far, I would have laughed in your face. Sure, they were annoying, sending passive-aggressive notices about my front lawn and complaining about my trash bins being an inch out of place. But I never thought they'd invade my home. It all started when Karen showed up at my door one afternoon, her face tight with barely concealed disgust. "This is an urgent matter," she announced, shoving a clipboard into my hands. I glanced at the papers, my stomach twisting. Violation notice. Unauthorized renovation of bathroom. I blinked. Renovation? What is she talking about? Karen let out a condescending sigh. "We saw the new window you installed. The HOA strictly prohibits unapproved exterior modifications." My eyes flickered to the tiny frosted bathroom window that had been there since I moved in. "I didn't install that. It was already there." Karen's eyes narrowed. "Lying won't help. Either pay the $5,000 fine or remove it immediately." I laughed. "You expect me to pay $5,000 for a window I didn't even install? That's insane." Her face twisted into something sinister. "Then I guess you leave me no choice." I didn't know what she meant. Not yet. But I'd soon find out just how far Karen was willing to go. Over the next few days, things got weird. HOA inspections suddenly started happening every morning. Karen and her goons peeking into my backyard, scribbling on their clipboards. I got anonymous complaints about loud noises, even though I live alone. My water pressure mysteriously dropped, making showers miserable. Then, one evening, I came home to find my backyard gate wide open. My stomach dropped. Had someone been inside? I searched every inch of the house, but nothing was missing. Still, a nagging feeling crept up my spine. Karen wouldn't break in, would she? That question was answered the night she barged into my bathroom. Standing in front of Karen, my body wrapped in a soaked towel, I felt rage like I had never felt before. She had crossed every line imaginable. I took a step forward, forcing her to back up. "You have 3 seconds to explain before I call the cops." She smirked. "Oh, go ahead. I have HOA authority. I was conducting an inspection." Inspection? She really thought she could justify breaking into my house because of some ridiculous rule? That's when I noticed something. She wasn't just taking pictures of the bathroom. She was focused on the sink. Something was going on, and I was going to find out exactly what. I took a slow breath, forcing myself to stay calm. If she wanted a war, I was ready. Karen had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I woke up with one mission: to make Karen regret ever stepping foot in my bathroom. But first, I needed answers. Why was she so obsessed with my house? What was so special about my bathroom sink? And more importantly, how did she even get in? I started by checking the locks. Nothing was broken. My front door was fine, and the windows were shut tight. But then, I found it. The tiny backyard gate, the one the HOA had accidentally left open last week, had scratch marks near the latch. Someone had picked the lock. I gritted my teeth. "Karen." I grabbed my phone and dialed the police. But before I could hit call, a thick envelope slid through my mail slot. My stomach twisted. I already knew who it was from. I tore it open and found an official HOA letter with Karen's smug signature at the bottom. Final notice. You are hereby ordered to pay $5,000 in fines, or the HOA will take legal action. Failure to comply may result in property lien or eviction. I laughed. Out loud. She wanted to play dirty? Fine. I could play dirtier. If Karen thought she could bully me, she was about to learn the hard way. I don't lose. I started where all juicy secrets live, the HOA bylaws. If I could find even one loophole, one mistake, I could destroy her. After 3 hours of digging, I struck gold. Buried in the fine print was a section titled HOA Officer Conduct. And right there, in black and white, was my ticket to revenge. Any HOA officer caught trespassing on a resident's property without written consent is grounds for immediate removal. I smiled. This wasn't just a loophole. It was a loaded weapon, and I was about to aim it right at Karen's head. But I wasn't finished. I wanted more. I wanted to know what Karen was hiding. I called my friend Mark. He was the kind of guy who could find dirt on anyone. If Karen had a secret, he'd dig it up. A day later, Mark texted me, "You're going to want to see this. Meet me ASAP." I met him at a local diner, and he slid a thick manila folder across the table. "Karen's hiding something big," he said. "I found records the HOA doesn't want anyone to see." I opened the folder, and my jaw hit the floor. Apparently, a plumbing company paid Karen a $10,000 kickback to flag homes for unauthorized renovations, even if the renovations never happened. My bathroom wasn't the first. Karen was running a scam. She was harassing homeowners, inventing violations, and getting paid to push people into expensive repairs. And now, I had the proof. I clenched my fists. Karen broke into my house to collect evidence for another fake violation, just to line her pockets. Enough was enough. It was time to make her beg for mercy. I hatched a plan, one that would destroy Karen's reign of terror once and for all. Step 1. I installed hidden cameras inside and outside my home. If she tried breaking in again, I'd have undeniable evidence. Step 2. I crafted a fake plumbing report claiming my bathroom pipes were compromised and left it where I knew Karen would find it. And step 3. I invited the entire HOA board to a special meeting at my house. If Karen wanted to play dirty, I was about to bury her. A week later, it happened. At 2:37 a.m., a familiar shadow crept toward my back gate. My heart raced as I watched the live camera feed. Karen. She jimmied the lock again and slipped inside. Only this time, I was ready. She crept to my bathroom and rummaged through the fake report I left on the counter. And that's when I called the police. 15 minutes later, flashing red and blue lights flooded my street. I greeted the officers with a smile and handed over my footage. Karen tried to lie her way out, but when they showed her the video, she cracked. Her face drained of color as the officers slapped handcuffs on her wrists. "This is illegal," she screeched. "I'm the HOA president." The cop just laughed. "Not anymore." I didn't just stop there. At the emergency HOA meeting I called, I exposed every single dirty secret, from the kickbacks to the illegal inspections. By the time I finished, Karen's face was as red as a tomato. The board voted unanimously to remove her as president, permanently. And the best part? Karen had to pay me $15,000 in damages or face criminal charges. When it was over, she pulled me aside, her voice shaking. "Please don't ruin my life." I smiled sweetly. "I didn't ruin your life, Karen. You did. And trust me, she's never coming near my bathroom again." You'd think getting arrested and kicked off the HOA board would be enough to humble Karen, but no. Less than a week after a public meltdown, I noticed a new problem. My trash bins, neatly placed on the curb, kept disappearing. My mail? Missing. And when I woke up one morning to find a giant red violation sticker slapped across my front door, I knew it wasn't over. Karen wasn't just angry. She wanted revenge. But what she didn't know, I had one last card to play. Before she was dragged away in cuffs, I made digital copies of everything Mark had found. Karen's kickbacks, her fake violations, and the plumbing scam, all neatly stored in a folder labeled Karen's Crimes, Full Exposure. I didn't just want Karen out of my life. I wanted to make sure no one ever trusted her again. So I did what any tech-savvy homeowner with a grudge would do. I created a website, www.karenexposado.com. I uploaded everything. Copies of the fake reports, the kickback receipts, and best of all, the security footage of her breaking into my bathroom. And then I hit publish. It took less than 24 hours for the whole neighborhood to explode. I sat back with a bowl of popcorn as the HOA Facebook group blew up. Karen was stealing from us? Is this why I got fined for my flower beds? She broke into a bathroom. What a creep. But the best comment? From Karen herself. Whoever made this site is lying. You'll be hearing from my lawyer. I laughed so hard I almost choked. A lawyer? Please. She could barely afford bail after the HOA cut her off. But just to be safe, I had one more surprise up my sleeve. The day after the site went live, I filed a restraining order against Karen. If she so much as stepped near my property again, she'd go straight to jail. But the real icing on the cake? I sent the website link to every local news station, and one of them bit. 2 days later, Karen's mugshot flashed across the evening news under the headline. HOA president caught in break-in scandal. Resident fights back. I wish I could have seen her face when it aired. The HOA board, eager to save face, sent me a letter officially voiding all my fines and issuing a formal apology. And Karen? Well, she wasn't just removed from the HOA. She had to move out. Turns out, people don't want to live next door to a criminal. A month later, as I water my garden, I spotted Karen standing by her moving truck. She looked smaller, her usual arrogant smirk replaced by defeat. She shuffled over, wringing her hands. Please, she whispered, take the site down. I can't get another job. You've ruined my life. I tilted my head, pretending to think. Kind of like how you try to ruin mine. Her eyes filled with tears. I was just doing my job. I laughed. Your job wasn't breaking into my house, Karen. And with that, I turned around and walked inside, leaving her begging on the sidewalk. Some people never learn. With Karen finally out of my life, I thought I could finally breathe easy. I was wrong. A new HOA president had stepped in to take her place, a man named Richard Dawson. On paper, he seemed reasonable. He promised to undo Karen's mess, refund homeowners who had been scammed, and rebuild trust in the HOA. But something about him felt off. Maybe it was the way he smiled too much, like he was constantly hiding something. Or the fact that he moved into Karen's old house just 2 weeks after she left. I had a gut feeling this wasn't over. One morning, I opened my front door to find a bright yellow notice nailed to my fence. Mandatory home inspection, required by HOA President Richard Dawson. Failure to comply may result in penalties. I felt a chill. A mandatory inspection? Since when? I scanned the fine print. The inspection was set for Friday at noon, only 2 days away. And guess who would be personally overseeing it? Richard Dawson himself. My stomach twisted. Something wasn't right. I went back inside and grabbed my laptop. If Dawson thought he could pull another Karen-style scam, he was in for a surprise. I started digging. Who was Richard Dawson, really? After an hour of research, I found something shocking. Richard and Karen weren't just friends. They were business partners. I found old records of joint investments in shady property development schemes. Their scam wasn't just about HOA violations. They were flipping homes. Karen forced homeowners to pay for expensive, unnecessary repairs. And if they couldn't afford them, she pressured them into selling at dirt-cheap prices. Then Richard would swoop in, buy the house for pennies, and flip it for massive profits. And now that Karen was gone, Richard was picking up where she left off. Friday arrived, and I was ready. At exactly noon, a black SUV rolled up, and out stepped Richard, flanked by 2 other HOA board members. Mr. Dawson, I greeted him, forcing a smile. You're right on time. He grinned like a politician. Let's make this quick, shall we? They stepped inside, clipboards in hand, and immediately started writing things down. Your gutters aren't up to code. They were brand new. Your backyard fence is too high. It was HOA approved. This bathroom renovation isn't permitted. I stiffened. There it was. Karen's bathroom scam, back in full force. Richard tapped his pen against the sink. Looks like we'll need to issue a correction order. You'll have 14 days to fix this, or we'll need to escalate the matter. I folded my arms. Escalate it how? He gave me the same fake smile. You'll find out. I clenched my fists. Not this time. I walked them to the door, but before they could leave, I pulled out my phone and hit record. Hey, Richard, I said sweetly. Just curious. When was the last time you spoke to Karen? His face twitched. That's irrelevant. Oh, I think it is. I turned the screen toward him, showing the public records of his business deals with Karen. Asterisk, asterisk. His smile vanished. The board members behind him shifted uncomfortably. They had no idea about his connection to Karen. I went in for the kill. I don't think the HOA would be happy to know their new president was Karen's business partner in fraud. Maybe they need to see this. Richard's face turned bright red. He spun around and stormed off. But I knew the fight wasn't over. He was going to strike back. I just had to be one step ahead. Just when I thought Karen was out of my life for good, someone worse stepped in. Her husband, Richard. I barely remembered him. He was one of those quiet, lurking types, always standing behind Karen with a sour expression. But when Karen skipped town to dodge her legal troubles, he didn't leave with her. No, he stayed behind. And he wanted revenge. It started with small things. One morning, I stepped outside to find my garden destroyed. Flowers ripped from the soil, my tomato plants smashed into pulp. At first, I thought it was just some random vandal, until I found a note tucked under a broken flower pot. You thought you won? Watch your back. I knew that handwriting. Karen's. Except she wasn't around anymore. That meant someone else left the note. And I had a good guess who. Richard. A few nights later, I spotted a black pickup truck idling near my driveway. It wasn't a neighbor's car. I would have recognized it. The truck sat there, engine humming, for almost 20 minutes. When I finally walked outside, it peeled away, but not before I caught a glimpse of the driver. Richard. He wasn't just watching, he was waiting, and I wasn't about to let him make the first move. If Richard wanted a fight, I'd give him one. I installed motion-activated cameras all around my property, hidden and angled just right. The next time he tried something, I'd catch him, and I didn't have to wait long. One night, around 2 a.m., I got a notification on my phone. Motion detected. I pulled up the camera feed, and there he was, Richard, crouching by my mailbox. He stuffed something inside, glanced around, and slipped back into his truck. Gotcha. The next morning, I checked the mailbox. Inside was another note, scrawled in Karen's same jagged handwriting. This isn't over. You took everything from us. I'll take everything from you. I smiled. If scaring me was his plan, he was doing a terrible job. I had all the evidence I needed. And now it was my turn. I printed out still images from the camera footage, clear shots of Richard trespassing on my property. I slipped them into a folder along with the threatening notes and took them straight to Mr. Reynolds, my lawyer. He was thrilled. This is harassment, he said, tapping the folder. We can shut him down fast. Within days, Richard was served with a formal cease and desist order and a warning that if he stepped on my property again, I'd pursue criminal charges. I thought that would be enough to send him packing. I was wrong. A week later, I came home from work and found my garage door wide open. Panic shot through me. I rushed inside, heart pounding, and found my tools scattered across the floor. Nothing was stolen, but someone had been there. And I knew exactly who. I checked my security cameras, expecting to see Richard sneaking around. But when I pulled up the footage, my stomach dropped. It wasn't just Richard. Karen was back. They weren't just angry. They were working together. And this time, I wouldn't let them get away with it. Seeing Karen and Richard together again sent a chill down my spine. I thought she had run away to escape her legal mess, but no. She was back. And now, with Richard by her side, they were doubling down on their revenge. But if they thought they could intimidate me, they had no idea who they were messing with. I wasn't just going to fight back. I was going to end this, for good. A few days after the garage break-in, things escalated. I woke up one morning to find my tires slashed, every single one. 4 deep cuts, perfectly precise. Whoever did it wasn't just angry. They wanted to send a message. I already knew who. And as I stood there, staring at the ruined tires, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I almost ignored it until I saw the message. Nice car. Shame if something worse happened to it. I clenched my fists. This wasn't a game anymore. It was time to trap them once and for all. I'd already caught Richard once with my security cameras, but this time, I wanted more. I called my old buddy Mark, the tech genius who helped me before. Together, we installed hidden cameras in my garage, my backyard, and even inside my car. Then, I set the perfect bait. I parked my car in the driveway, freshly repaired, but I left the garage door slightly open, just enough to suggest I let my guard down. If they wanted another shot, they wouldn't be able to resist. And like clockwork, they fell for it. At 3:17 a.m., my phone buzzed, motion detected. I bolted upright and pulled up the camera feed. And there they were, Karen and Richard creeping up my driveway like two thieves in the night. Karen held a can of spray paint, while Richard carried bolt cutters, no doubt planning to destroy something valuable. Not this time. I didn't call the police immediately. No, I want to catch everything. They crept closer to my garage, whispering to each other. I turned up the volume on the camera, and my heart raced as I heard their plan. Karen, slash the tires again. Maybe break a window. He deserves it. Richard, relax. We'll do this, and he won't even know it's us. I smirked. Oh, I knew. And soon, everyone else would too. I watched as Richard raised the bolt cutters until I hit record and called 911. By the time the police arrived, Karen and Richard were still in my driveway, arguing about which tire to slash first. The flashing lights hit them like a spotlight, and the panic on their faces? Priceless. I stepped outside as two officers cuffed them both. Karen shrieked, "You can't arrest us. We didn't do anything." I held up my phone, playing back the crystal-clear video of them vandalizing my property. "Really?" I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Because the cameras say otherwise." The officers laughed. "Yeah, you're both coming with us." As they shoved Karen into the squad car, she screamed, "This isn't over." But for once, I knew it was. The next day, I took the footage straight to the HOA board. Mr. Thompson, the new HOA president, was already on edge from Karen's embezzlement scandal. And when I showed him the video, his face turned pale. "We can't let this slide," he said. "She's out. Forever." The HOA immediately issued a permanent ban on Karen and Richard, barring them from living in the neighborhood again. And to twist the knife, I uploaded the video, every humiliating second, to the KarenExpositoa.com website, complete with the headline, "Karen returns, and we caught her red-handed." The video went viral. Neighbors laughed, news outlets picked it up, and within days, Karen and Richard became the most infamous couple in town. And me? My house was safer than ever, and I made sure of it. I added even more cameras and installed a new security gate, all paid for by the HOA as an apology for not stopping Karen sooner. If they ever try to mess with me again, I'd be ready. I thought I had one. Karen and Richard were arrested. The HOA banned them for life. And thanks to the viral video, they were humiliated beyond repair. For a while, things were peaceful. I could finally enjoy my home without constantly checking the cameras or worrying about slashed tires. But with Karen, it's never over. One evening, I was watering my garden when I spotted something strange. A small, white envelope tucked under a flower pot. My stomach twisted. I hadn't received a threatening note since the night Richard was caught. I picked it up, hands trembling slightly, and opened it. Inside was a single Polaroid of me. I froze. It was a picture of me sitting on my porch, sipping coffee, taken that morning. Scrawled on the back were 3 chilling words. "Miss me yet? Karen." My blood ran cold. She was watching me. And worse, she wasn't done. I rushed to my security system, checking the footage. But this time, Karen was smarter. No truck, no obvious break-ins, just shadows. I knew she wasn't supposed to be within 500 feet of my property. The restraining order guaranteed that. But if Karen was good at anything, it was breaking the rules. And soon, she would cross the line in a way I never expected. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon. I was cleaning out my garage when I heard a loud crash from inside my house. I froze. No one else was supposed to be home. Heart pounding, I grabbed my phone and crept toward the noise. The sound had come from the bathroom. The door was ajar, the handle slightly bent, like someone had forced it open. I pushed the door open, and my jaw dropped. Karen. She was standing in my bathroom, soaking wet, her face twisted with rage. I had no idea how she got in. "You thought you could humiliate me?" she hissed. "I'm not done with you." Before I could react, she lunged forward, snatching my phone from my hand and chucking it into the toilet. My mind raced. How had she even gotten inside? Every door was locked. Every window was shut. But then I remembered. The bathroom window. I had left it cracked open for ventilation. I backed up slowly, keeping my voice calm. "You're breaking the law, Karen," I said. "You need to leave, right now." But she just laughed. "You think you can scare me with a piece of paper?" I had to act fast. My phone was fried, and I couldn't call the police. But what Karen didn't know, I had another trick up my sleeve. While Karen ranted about how I ruined her life, I edged closer to my bedroom, where my panic button was hidden under my nightstand. A quick press of the button would silently alert the local police. I just needed one opening. "You're pathetic," Karen spat, always hiding behind the HOA like a coward. I faked a laugh, keeping her distracted. "Funny, you're the one breaking into someone's bathroom. Who's the coward now?" Her face flushed red with fury, and in that split second, I lunged for the panic button. Click! The signal was sent. Help was on the way. But Karen wasn't finished yet. Just when I thought she might run, Karen did something unthinkable. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small canister. "Spray paint. Let's see how you like this," she sneered, shaking the can. "You think your fancy cameras can save you? Not this time." She darted toward my living room, aiming straight for my brand new couch. But I wasn't about to let her win. I tackled her before she could spray a drop, knocking the can from her hand. We tumbled to the floor, her screams echoing through the house. And that's when I heard it, sirens. Karen froze. I pushed myself off her, breathless but relieved. "Game over," I said. She tried to bolt for the back door, but the moment she stepped outside, 2 police officers were waiting. Karen's face twisted in shock as the officers grabbed her arms and slapped on handcuffs. "You're under arrest for violating a restraining order and breaking and entering," one officer said. "You have the right to remain silent." I followed them out, watching as Karen was stuffed into the squad car. And for the first time in months, I felt safe. But this time, I wouldn't leave things to chance. I met with my lawyer the next day and pressed every possible charge: breaking and entering, property damage, harassment, and restraining order violation. Karen wasn't just facing fines. She was looking at serious jail time. And as for Richard, well, he wisely packed up and left town for good. They thought they could break me. But in the end, I broke them. For the first time in months, I finally felt like I had the upper hand. Karen was in jail, Richard had skipped town, and the HOA was fully on my side. But something in my gut told me this wasn't over. Karen wasn't the type to go down without a fight. And when the court date finally arrived, she proved me right. The courthouse was buzzing with reporters and neighbors. My story, and the bathroom break-in, had gone viral. It seemed like everyone wanted to see Karen's downfall. I sat in the front row, my lawyer by my side, watching as Karen strutted into the courtroom in a stiff gray suit. She still had that smug look on her face, as if she thought she could talk her way out of everything. The judge, a no-nonsense woman with steel gray hair, didn't look amused. "Mrs. Whitmore," she said, glaring at Karen, "you are facing serious charges, including breaking and entering, destruction of property, and violating a court-ordered restraining order. How do you plead?" Without missing a beat, Karen stood up. "Not guilty, Your Honor," she said, her voice smooth and confident. I bit back a laugh. Not guilty? The evidence against her was ironclad, and she knew it. But then she did something that stunned everyone. Karen's lawyer, a slick guy in an expensive suit, stood up and spun the wildest story I'd ever heard. According to Karen, I wasn't the victim. She was. "My client was framed," he said, pacing the courtroom. "This man has harassed and humiliated Mrs. Whitmore online, pushing her to the brink. She only entered the house because she feared for her safety." I nearly choked on my water. Feared for her safety? The woman had broken into my bathroom and tried to vandalize my home. Karen, ever the actress, dabbed her eyes with a tissue, pretending to cry. "He's obsessed with me," she said in a trembling voice. "I was just trying to protect myself." The courtroom murmured in disbelief. Even the judge raised an eyebrow. But Karen wasn't done. "Your Honor," she added softly, "I'm just a misunderstood woman trying to live in peace. This man, he ruined my life." My lawyer wasn't about to let her get away with that nonsense. He stood up, cool and collected. "Your Honor," he said, "the evidence speaks for itself." And then we played the video. Every single frame, Karen breaking in, stealing my phone, and threatening me. The jury's faces hardened as the footage rolled. The judge's expression went from annoyed to outright furious. And Karen? Her fake tears dried up fast. But my lawyer had one more card to play. We also have records, he said, proving Mrs. Whitmore has violated her restraining order 3 separate times, including this incident. He handed the judge a thick file filled with timestamps, photos, and witness statements. Karen's face turned ghost white. Checkmate. The judge didn't need long to decide. She slammed her gavel and fixed Karen with a cold stare. Mrs. Whitmore, she said sharply, I have no doubt that you are guilty. Your pattern of harassment is disturbing, and frankly, I find your attempt to play the victim insulting to this court. Karen's mouth fell open. I hereby sentence you to 6 months in county jail, the judge declared, and issue a permanent restraining order. If you come within 1,000 feet of the victim again, you will face felony charges. I exhaled in relief as the bailiff escorted Karen away, handcuffed and humiliated. For once, she had no comeback. Just when I thought everything was settled, something unexpected happened. After the trial, Mr. Thompson, the HOA president, approached me with a grin. We're not done with her, he said. He explained that the HOA was suing Karen for damages, not just to my property, but for the chaos she had caused the entire community. We're taking everything, he said. Her house, her assets. She's going to regret ever messing with us. I couldn't help but smile. Karen thought she could ruin my life. But now, she was losing everything. You'd think 6 months in jail would have humbled Karen. But if there's one thing I learned about her, she never knows when to quit. While she was behind bars, I enjoyed the quiet. No slash tires. No creepy Polaroids. No break-ins. Life felt normal. But the day Karen was released, the war wasn't over. It was just getting started. Mr. Thompson, the HOA president, wasn't bluffing. He hit Karen with a massive lawsuit, demanding payment for every bit of damage she caused, from the graffiti to the broken cameras. And because of the bathroom break-in, the court had already frozen her assets. I was expecting Karen to fight back, maybe file a countersuit, or try to worm her way out of it. But when she skipped the court hearing, she made the worst mistake of her life. The judge ruled against her by default, and the HOA, they took everything. Her house, her car, her savings. Karen, once the HOA queen, was officially broke. And that's when I got an idea. A delicious, petty idea. One day, Mr. Thompson called me. Her house is officially on the market, he said, trying and failing to hide his excitement. Karen's precious McMansion, the same one where she spied on me, plotted against me, and broke into my bathroom, was being auctioned off. And because of all her legal troubles, the starting bid was $1. I couldn't resist. At the auction, I raised my hand and said, $1. No one else dared to bid against me. Not after everything Karen had done. When the auctioneer slammed the gavel and said, sold, I felt a rush of pure satisfaction. I now owned Karen's house, the very thing she loved more than anything. And the best part? She didn't know yet. A week later, I went to check out my new property. The house was eerily quiet, except for a few boxes left behind. As I stood in her empty living room, where she used to hold those ridiculous HOA meetings, I couldn't help but smile. I was winning. But then, I heard the sound of heels clicking against the pavement. I turned around, and there she was. Karen. Her face was pale, her hair unkempt, and the smugness she always carried, gone. You, she hissed, eyes burning with hatred. You took everything from me. I crossed my arms, keeping my voice calm. I didn't take it. You lost it. Her hand shook as she pointed a finger at me. You ruined my life. I let out a soft laugh. Karen, you did that all by yourself. But what she said next, it almost made me feel sorry for her. Tears welled up in her eyes as she slumped against the wall. I just wanted respect, she whispered. I wanted people to admire me. And now, I have nothing. For a moment, the fierce, cruel Karen was gone, replaced by a broken woman who had lost everything. And deep down, I realized something. Karen didn't harass me because she hated me. She did it because she was desperate to hold on to her power, and the moment I stood up to her, her whole world crumbled. I should have walked away. I should have let her stew in her misery. But instead, I decided to deliver the final blow. I stepped closer, keeping my voice steady. You spent months making my life a nightmare. And for what? So you could feel important? I shook my head. All you had to do was leave me alone. But now, you have nothing, and I'm not sorry. She opened her mouth to argue, but nothing came out. I turned to leave, pausing at the doorway for one last dig. Oh, I added over my shoulder, enjoy your new place. I hear the motel down the street has a lovely view of the dumpster. I didn't wait for her response. I had one, and Karen? She was finally finished. For a while, life was peaceful. No creepy notes. No property damage. No bathroom break-ins. Karen was gone, forced to live in a rundown motel on the edge of town while I settled comfortably into her old house. I should have felt safe. I should have believed the nightmare was finally over. But Karen? She wasn't done with me yet. It started on a quiet Saturday night. I was unpacking boxes in Karen's former living room when I smelled something strange. Smoke. My heart pounded as I ran to the window, and what I saw nearly made me drop to the floor. My garage was on fire. Flames licked the sky, casting a blood-red glow across the lawn. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, barely able to speak. There's a fire. Please hurry. The firefighters arrived just in time to save the house, but the garage? Gone. And when the fire chief handed me a burned-out gas can, his face grim, I knew. This wasn't an accident. Someone had set the fire on purpose, and I had a pretty good idea who. I knew Karen was desperate, but arson? That was a whole new level of crazy. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. So, I installed hidden cameras all over the property, every entrance, every window, and especially the remains of the garage. If she tried anything again, I'd catch her. And sure enough, 2 nights later, she came back. At 2:37 a.m., my phone buzzed with a motion alert. Bleary-eyed, I opened the camera app and froze. There she was, Karen, creeping around the side of the house, carrying what looked like a crowbar. I called the police immediately, and this time, they arrived before she could do any damage. When the officers confronted her, Karen tried to play innocent. I was just going for a walk, she stammered. But when they searched her bag and found spray paint, matches, and a screwdriver, her excuses fell apart. And the best part? I had everything on video. At the police station, I watched through the glass as Karen finally broke down. Her perfect facade shattered. Her confidence gone. With all the evidence against her, the cops hit her with a laundry list of charges, including arson, vandalism, and violating a restraining order. When the officer told her she was facing serious jail time, Karen snapped. "This is his fault," she shrieked, pointing at me. "If he never moved here, none of this would have happened." I raised an eyebrow, keeping my voice calm. "You did this to yourself, Karen." And for once, she had nothing to say. A month later, we were back in court. But this time, the stakes were higher. Karen's lawyer tried to paint her as a victim, a misunderstood woman who had lost everything. But when the prosecution played the hidden camera footage of her creeping around with arson supplies, the jury's minds were made up. In less than an hour, they found her guilty on all counts. When the judge handed down the sentence, 2 years in prison, I felt a mix of relief and satisfaction. Karen had spent months making my life a nightmare, but now she was paying the price. In the months that followed, peace returned to the neighborhood. The HOA, grateful for everything I'd endured, elected me to replace Karen as the new vice president. I used my new position to clean up the mess she left behind, lowering the ridiculous fines, restoring community events, and making life better for everyone. And Karen? She sat in prison, powerless and forgotten. But the icing on the cake? I sold her house for a massive profit and used the money to build a luxury garage where a fire had once burned. Every time I pulled my car into it, I smiled. Because in the end, I didn't just survive Karen's chaos. I won.